Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to imagine you're standing at the very edge of a cliff. Your heart is pounding. Your palms are sweating. You're looking down at a drop so steep you can't see the bottom. Every instinct you have screams for you to back away, to retreat to safety. Yet, there's a tiny voice inside that whispers, "What if this is where you're meant to leap?" That voice might be small, but it's powerful. And it dares you to consider what if you can soar higher than you ever thought possible. We're gathered here today because each one of us has looked out over that edge in one way or another, and we felt both the terror and the excitement. We've questioned our limits, weighed our odds, and fought the urge to stay put. So let's talk about it. Let's confront the reality that all of life is risky. And in that risk, in that gap between what's known and unknown, there lies our greatest potential for growth. When we stand still, we stagnate, we shrink. When we move forward, our hearts tremble, but we come alive. Risk is the universe's way of challenging us to prove how badly we want the things we say we dream of. It's the price we pay for stepping into something bigger than ourselves. Something that demands we learn to fly on the way down. You've probably felt that tension in your life. Maybe it was the moment you contemplated a career change, or the second you decided to finally express your feelings to someone you care about. Perhaps it was when you poured your life savings into an idea that kept you awake at night, or when you walked away from a comfortable routine because you knew it was slowly eating at your soul. When I say it's all risky, I don't mean that to scare you. I say it to remind you that risk is the common denominator in every major victory we will ever achieve. If you're not willing to risk, you're not going to grow. If you're not willing to grow, you're not really living. I want you to see that right here, right now. This conversation is not just about playing it safe or taking wild leaps for the sake of drama. It's about understanding that every choice has a consequence, and every consequence holds a lesson. And we can't let the fear of failing outweigh the joy of experiencing life's fullness. Do you feel the electricity in this room? That buzzing sense that something could shift in a single moment if you just decide it's time. That's the energy that bubbles up in our spirits whenever we confront a challenge. We might want to hide from it, but we can't deny that it's there. Risk is everywhere. The real question is, are we going to let it paralyze us? Or will we channel it into momentum that propels us forward? Because we can choose to stand at the cliff's edge indefinitely, trembling and hoping someone pulls us back to safety. Or we can choose to take a step, maybe even a leap, knowing we might stumble, we might get hurt, but we might also taste the sweet air of freedom that comes from living courageously. We're here to address that choice. Risk is something we often associate with danger or loss. But tonight, let's shift our perspective. Let's see risk as an invitation to become the person we are meant to be. A challenge that sharpens our instincts and hones our passions. I'm not suggesting that you walk blindly into the unknown. I'm suggesting you consider that the unknown might just be holding your greatest opportunity for victory. If we decide to lock ourselves away behind walls of fear, those same walls will keep out hope and possibility. At the end of our lives, if we look back and see only unfulfilled potential, it means we never learned to lean into the discomfort. So let's stand up together, let's look risk in the eye, and let's refuse to give in. Instead, let's lean forward. Yes, it's all risky. But that risk might be the best friend you never knew you had. It might be the driving force that compels you to practice harder, study longer, love deeper, and take that shot because you know your moment is coming. Your moment is now. I want to highlight a key piece of this conversation: the necessity of stepping outside our comfort zones when the stakes are high. Sometimes that step is less like a walk across the room and more like a lunging dive into the deep end. It's not gentle. It's not easy. But that's precisely why it's transformative. We can spend years preparing, convincing ourselves we'll be ready someday. But then someday never quite arrives unless we make it today. Allow me to give you a powerful example. Years ago, I knew a man, let's call him Jackson, who dreamed of writing a novel that would change lives. He had it all mapped out: a compelling story, unforgettable characters, a powerful message. For years, he told himself he would start writing when the time was right. But the time never seemed right. There was always another excuse: a busy day job, family obligations, fear that his story wouldn't resonate with readers. The real culprit, though, was the risk of failure. He feared pouring his heart onto the page and watching it go unnoticed. The result: 10 years went by, and he never wrote a single word. His dreams stayed locked inside, safe from rejection, but also deprived of life. The price of avoiding risk became the slow decay of his passion. That's what happens when we dodge risk. We pay for it with the smallest versions of ourselves. We convince ourselves we're happy, or at least comfortable. But deep down we wonder what might have been if we had just dared to try. Jackson's story illustrates the cost of playing it safe for too long. It robs us of growth, of the thrill of discovery, of the chance to leave our unique mark on the world. But the moment Jackson recognized he couldn't live with the regret any longer, something changed. He set aside 30 minutes each morning, no matter what, to write. That simple but significant act of risking his comfort set him free. He finished his novel, and although it didn't become a global bestseller, it touched a handful of people in a profound way, including Jackson himself. He rediscovered the spark that had been buried beneath fear. That's what risk can do. It can reignite your soul, expand your vision, and make you realize that the real failure is never trying at all. If you see yourself in Jackson's story, or maybe you see someone you know, a person stuck on the sidelines, waiting for the perfect moment, hear me now. The perfect moment doesn't exist. You create it the instant you decide it's time. Look at your own life. Are there dreams you put on hold because of uncertainty? Take a moment to reflect right here, right now. What if you decided that starting tomorrow, you dedicate a piece of your energy to moving toward that goal? Maybe it's a plan to grow your business, or an effort to rebuild a relationship you fear you've lost. There's risk in going for it. There's also risk in not going for it. Which consequence can your heart truly live with? The heartbreak of trying and falling short, or the quietude of never having tried at all? When you recognize that no path is completely free from danger, suddenly the landscape of your choices opens up. You stop waiting for safety to present itself, and you start forging your own path. That's the solution here. Identify what matters most to you, acknowledge the risk, and then charge forward anyway. Prepare as best you can. Learn what you need to learn. Gather your resources, your courage, your allies. But understand that every step you take still carries a bit of uncertainty. And that's okay. Because growth never comes in a box labeled guaranteed success. Growth comes with a label that says, proceed at your own risk. And if we're honest, that's the label that changes our lives for the better. Now, I can see some of you nodding, some of you shifting in your seats, maybe remembering the countless times you've stood on your own cliff. Perhaps you feel the pain of regret, or maybe you feel a surge of anticipation, ready to leap. I urge you to take that feeling home, to let it stir you into action. Because the lesson I want you to carry from this is simple. You can't escape risk, but you can harness it. The fear you feel can become fuel for the fire inside you. All it takes is a choice. Will you say yes to the challenge? Will you say yes to your own potential? Or will you settle for a lifetime of wondering what might have been? Let's build on that and look at another facet of what it means to embrace risk in our day-to-day lives, especially when it comes to forging genuine connections with people. I've seen it time and time again. Good relationships, great relationships never formed because of the fear of vulnerability. We avoid opening our hearts. We avoid expressing our true selves. We cloak our emotions, keep everything shallow, because diving deeper might lead to heartbreak or misunderstanding. But if we never reveal who we truly are, how will anyone ever really know us? And how will we ever genuinely know them? Authentic connection is risky. Love is risky. Caring is risky. You offer your heart, you put your guard down, and there's a chance you might get hurt. But there's also a chance for something extraordinary to happen. A bond that strengthens you both, that lifts you higher, that changes the course of your life. Let me share a story that's very close to my heart. A friend of mine, let's call her Lena, was a fiercely independent individual. She prided herself on never needing anyone's help. She had been burned in the past, so she built tall emotional walls. When someone tried to get close, she'd push them away. One day, she found herself in a tough situation, an unexpected health scare that left her feeling shaken and alone. Suddenly, her independence couldn't shield her from the vulnerabilities of being human. In that moment, Alina had a choice. She could remain walled off and try to muscle through the crisis alone, or she could reach out for support, exposing her fear, her fragility, her need. That second option felt terrifying to her, but she took it. She asked for help from friends and family, and she found herself overwhelmed by the outpouring of care. Yes, it was risky to share her weaknesses, but in doing so, she discovered a wellspring of love and strength she never knew existed. That risk led to deepening relationships that not only aided her recovery, but also opened her heart to a sense of belonging she'd yearned for all her life. The reason I share Alina's story is that it highlights the fact that stepping into vulnerability is perhaps the scariest risk of all. We don't just risk embarrassment or financial loss, we risk emotional pain. But if we fail to embrace that risk, we may never know the warmth of true connection. Think about the people in your life. Is there someone you've avoided talking to? Someone whose presence lingers in the back of your mind? Someone you love or admire, but haven't dared to tell? Could it be a family member, a mentor, a friend, or even a romantic interest? If there is, ask yourself, is the risk of rejection or misunderstanding worth losing the chance to forge a meaningful bond? Often, the scariest leaps we take are the ones that can enrich our lives the most. That's the power of risking emotional exposure. It creates the space for authenticity and the kind of relationships that allow us to flourish. So how do we do this? How do we move beyond our barriers? First, we acknowledge the walls we've built. Identify the fear. Fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, fear of love not being reciprocated, name it. Recognize how it's been controlling you. Then, take a step toward dismantling those walls. Send that message. Pick up that phone. Speak those words that have been trapped in your throat. Does it feel risky? Absolutely. But here's the thing. That risk is the currency we pay for genuine human connection. And genuine connection gives us a reason to keep chasing our dreams, to keep hustling, to keep believing in tomorrow. It nourishes our spirit and reminds us we're not alone in this complicated journey called life. If you shy away from that risk, you'll end up living in a fortress of solitude. Maybe it's safe, but it's certainly lonely. And that loneliness can bleed into everything you do. It can diminish your resilience, sap your motivation, and leave you feeling that something is missing, even if everything else looks perfect on the outside. So, the solution is simple in concept, but challenging in practice. You make the decision to be brave enough to show who you are. Take small steps if you must, but don't fool yourself into thinking that you can find real fulfillment without risking your heart. The relationships that matter, the ones that define us, that shape our character, are built on trust and openness. And trust requires vulnerability. Vulnerability requires risk. But the rewards are immeasurable. As you contemplate this, I want you to think about how it ties back to the broader theme. Life's inherently risky, and it's not limited to career choices or personal goals. It seeps into our relationships, our sense of self-worth, our willingness to love and be loved. Embracing risk is a holistic act. It says, I choose to live fully, to feel fully, to connect fully, no matter the cost. This is how you integrate boldness into every aspect of your life. And once you start living this way, once you allow risk to become a catalyst for authenticity, you'll find that the horizon of your possibilities expands. You'll be more creative, more courageous, more aligned with your purpose. You'll discover resources within yourself you never knew you had. We've covered a lot of ground. The risk of stepping into our dreams and the risk of opening our hearts. Now, I want to weave it all together. Let's gather these insights and guide them toward a final destination that calls you to action. Because talk is cheap. The real power lies in what you do after you leave here tonight. Maybe you came to this moment feeling uncertain about whether you should keep pushing, keep believing, keep trusting in something you can't see yet. And maybe right now you're feeling that spark. You sense that the time to act is upon you. Embrace that feeling. Don't let it slip away once this room empties and your everyday routine tries to lull you back into complacency. If you do, you'll miss out on the transformation that's waiting on the other side of your decision to be bold. It's time for the truth. You can't avoid risk, so you might as well leverage it. Use it as a stepping stone. Use it as the reason you get up an hour earlier to hone your craft. Use it as the catalyst to tell someone you appreciate them, to reach out for help, to stand up for something you believe in. If you fail, so what? Failure is not final. Failure is part of the process. We fail forward. We fail upward. Each misstep refines us, teaches us, toughens us. And that's what makes the eventual triumph worth it. No one celebrates a victory that was handed to them on a silver platter with the same passion as they celebrate the victory they bled for, the one they risked for, the one they fought against the odds to claim. If you take nothing else from this evening, please remember this: you are far more capable than you believe, and the only way to discover the depth of that capability is by daring to find out. Let that message ring in your ears. Let it follow you home. Let it seep into your conversations, your next project, your relationships. Let it challenge you to be uncomfortable on purpose. Let it motivate you to practice vulnerability. Let it embolden you to move forward even when the path is steep and the outcome uncertain. Because the moments we remember, the ones we treasure, are the moments when we chose to act in spite of fear. The moments when we decided that even if everything crumbled, at least we wouldn't be left wondering, what if I tried? So, where does all of this leave us? It leaves us face to face with the challenge of living deeply, purposefully, and fearlessly. It doesn't mean recklessness. It doesn't mean you throw all caution to the wind and hope for the best. It means you do your homework, you make your plan, and then you let your heart lead you the rest of the way. Because the mind, wonderful as it is, has a habit of fixating on potential losses. The heart, on the other hand, yearns to love, to create, to explore. You need both to walk this path. Balance them. Listen to both. But in the end, when you stand at the edge of that cliff, you'll never have enough data to guarantee success. And that's where faith comes in. Faith in yourself, in your preparation, in the vision you hold dear, and in the people who walk beside you. At this point, I suspect some of you feel a raw stirring in your chest. It might be excitement, it might be fear, or maybe it's a bit of both. Good. That means you're alive. That means you're standing on the cusp of something greater. I'm not here to push you over that edge. I'm here to remind you that you have wings, and you'll never know how strong they are unless you spread them. Maybe you'll glide. Maybe you'll even soar. Or maybe you'll stumble and have to pick yourself up. Either way, you'll learn something priceless about who you are and what you're capable of. This is your life we're talking about. No one can live it for you. No one can face your risks for you. So let's make it count. Think back to every major breakthrough you've ever witnessed, whether in history, in science, in art, or in your personal life. Behind every glorious achievement stood someone who dared to risk humiliation, defeat, or ridicule. They stood where you stand now, asked themselves the tough questions, and decided to go for it anyway. That's how new worlds get discovered, how new cures are found, how profound art is created, and how epic love stories are written. It always starts with a risk. And if all roads eventually lead to risk, then why not choose the one that has a chance at extraordinary reward? Why not bet on yourself, on your dreams, on your capacity for love and connection? Why not decide that you can handle the failures along the way, because deep in your gut, you know the payoff could be a life of meaning and depth? Now, here's the final piece of the puzzle, the call to action. This is where your hand hovers over the handle of the door, where you decide if you'll fling it open or turn around. I'm challenging you, yes, you, personally, to identify just one risk you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a phone call you haven't made, a dream you haven't pursued, a person you haven't forgiven, or an opportunity you keep telling yourself you're not ready for. Identify that one risk and resolve to face it head on. Make a plan, set a date, tell a friend so they can hold you accountable, then follow through. This is not a challenge for next year or next month. This is a challenge for now. When this event is over and life's noise tries to drown out your newfound resolve, remember this challenge. Remember the power you felt in this room. Remember that you were courageous enough to dream of a bigger, bolder version of yourself. Let that memory spur you into action. As you step forward, you might find others who doubt you, who discourage you. Don't let that stop you. They may even call you foolish. Remember that every great endeavor looks a little foolish at the start. What matters is that you're true to the calling within you. There will be moments of hesitation. A part of you might want to retreat. But that's precisely the moment when courage is forged. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving ahead despite the fear. So, embrace the tremor in your voice, the quiver in your legs, the sweat on your brow. They're signs that you're alive and pushing your boundaries. Take them as proof that you're stepping into uncharted territory where transformation and miracles happen. And finally, let hope be your companion. Hope is not naive. Hope is defiant. Hope looks at adversity and says, I'm still here. Let hope remind you that every setback is temporary, that every victory is a milestone, and that every risk you take shapes you into a braver, stronger person. Let that hope glow inside you until it ignites everything you do. Because when your life burns with the light of purpose, risk ceases to be a barrier and becomes a door. And when you walk through that door, you step into a version of life you never dared to imagine. A space where you're free to express your gifts, to love without reservation, and to contribute something meaningful to the world. My friends, I stand before you tonight not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who believes deeply in the power of taking chances. I've seen the cost of playing it safe, and I've tasted the sweetness of risking everything for a dream or a connection. I can tell you, with every fiber of my being, that yes, it's all risky, but the biggest risk of all is never truly living. So let's walk out of here with our heads held high, our hearts open, and our spirits on fire. Let's walk out of here ready to say yes to our dreams, yes to love, yes to hope, and yes to the unknown possibilities that await. Let's walk out of here determined to leap if we must, to stumble if we must, but always to rise again. Because life will pass us by if we choose to remain spectators, but it will crown us with purpose if we dare to participate fully. This is your moment. Let it be the first of many. Let it stand as a declaration that you choose to live boldly, love courageously, and embrace the truth that it's all risky. And that's exactly why it's worth it.